If Twilight Struggle was a game that you really enjoyed, you may want to take a look at 1989. We're going to explain why today on Legendary Tactics.
This is a game we've wanted to talk about for ages on the channel.
Yes.
And we're finally getting
exactly. Like 5 years later, we finally
So
decided.
1989 is a game that came out after Twilight Struggle.
Yes.
Sorry, the full title is 1989 Dawn of Freedom.
Correct.
And tell us what it's about. What's it?
Okay, so it's we're looking at basically Eastern Germany or Eastern Europe. And we're kind of walking through the different countries there, and you're kind of battling for supremacy.
Yes,
right?
and all the events that happened in 1989 where essentially the Soviet Union collapsed. The fall of the Berlin Wall, all that stuff happened. And this is the game that features the events of that era. And it's incredible. It all happened within a year. Like it's all in 1989 of all things. So what would you say about the theme of this game? And
the theme is you're definitely immersed in that year, in that time frame, in that period, and you definitely feel the same kind of tensions. I would say that Twilight Struggle had, that Cold War sense, the push and pull. They use a lot of the same levers. We'll talk about that later, but it definitely has that kind of immersive feel. All the different card events kind of track along with all the different kinds of things that were occurring in that time period.
Yeah.
So historically, they have that there. I really love that the revisionist kind of history that can happen too with this game, where you're playing events out of order, out of sequential order or chronological order, and seeing if doing that may have tweaked. By your own gameplay too, of course, but tweaked what the outcome was.
Yeah, which is similar to Twilight Struggle. Oftentimes I hear Twilight Struggle compared to 1960, The Making of the President. This is more of a direct sequel to Twilight Struggle. Not only is it about the Cold War thematically, but the mechanisms are much more closely aligned. Like, for example, you have the early year, mid-year, late year decks and so forth, and scoring cards, and which are not present in 1960. In 1960, everything's shuffled together, and there's no scoring cards and so forth.
You have your Tiananmen Square track, which is the space race.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So you have your battleground locations versus just the regular.
Yes.
Now they have added in little twists.
Yeah.
For example, you have different icons on each of these locations now, representing different features.
And different factions, right? Different populations. So if the students occupy the university, there's also an intellectual space where the writers are.
The farmers.
You got workers. You have minority groups.
The elite.
Yeah.
Or the elite, actually.
The limousines, the bureaucrats are the stars.
Right.
And so you've got, and also the churches as well. You've got the Polish Catholic Church there. Right. So they're all different factions that can contribute to the power struggles which happen at key points in the game. And it's one of the things that is different about this game as well, in that it introduces the idea of the power struggle, which was not in Twilight Struggle.
And those features play pretty critically in that as well, because those features, at certain points of the power struggle, which we're going to talk about, if you draw wild cards that you own that square, will give you bonuses.
Yeah, so for example, an intellectual leader, you need to have the control of the writer's space in that particular country in order to be able to use this card at all.
Otherwise, it's a dead card.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But thematically, you have that sense of, on one hand, you're the uprising, the revolutionaries, and so forth, versus the establishment, the Russian, Soviet, Soviet bureaucracy and so forth. And so thematically, it definitely has that tension of like, things could go either way.
Yes.
Really. Yeah. And there is that same, probably a lot of that same tension that existed in real life.
Yes. So the power struggle is one area that is new, and I want to talk about that really briefly. So when a country's scoring card is laid, so if you're a fan of Twilight Struggle, you score different countries throughout the game at different points. When you get the card, they must be played in a round. So when you score a country, you'll be dealt. You evaluate your stake in that country. You're dealt cards accordingly. And then basically you go back and forth having to, and there's different kinds of cards. There's leader cards, which are the wilds. One's called Rally in the Square. Yeah. And there's strikes and marches.
And you have a sort of special tactics
petitions
cards,
as well.
Petitions. Yeah.
Right. So so basically you'll go back and forth and having to match your opponent's card who's laid whatever suit they've laid. Then you roll a dice to see if you can switch initiative around to earn initiative, and basically it's the last man standing.
Yeah. Whoever runs out of the card. So if I play a march and you don't have the ability to match that, you lose. I win the power struggle, and potentially the country changes control,
Right.
and becomes
Because
independent.
You then get to roll for support withdrawal. So
Yes.
you get to withdraw. The winner will withdraw a number of support, or make the loser withdraw support from that country, potentially shifting the balance.
Yeah, and then you score.
Then you score it.
Yeah, then you score
Which
the
is a
country.
really neat twist on Twilight Struggle. I think in some ways really like an improvement. It ramped up that whole scoring mechanic.
It makes it much more consequential and a lot more unpredictable too.
Yes.
You can play a scoring card, and in Twilight Struggle you would say, just add up your points. But here you don't know how that could go. You may end up losing in an upset and having to take your licks basically.
Yeah.
So,
in that power struggle, there's also raising the stakes.
yes.
Which actually you can opt to remove 3 of your cards.
Yeah.
And then improve your winning.
Yeah, well, it boosts your die roll when you roll for victory points and for your enemy support loss. So so there's a whole mini game in
That's
that
right.
mechanism, which I think it adds
Do
a
you
whole
like
new
that?
dimension.
Do you like that? Because it feels like the game has to stop.
Yeah.
And you have to do this little side activity and then return back to the game.
I overall yes, but
Okay.
I it is one of those things where sometimes you could have an overwhelming advantage in cards, but
Yeah.
for example, if you just don't have one rally in the square and your opponent leads with that, that's it. So
right.
there's a little bit of luck in that, which sometimes I have a problem with, but overall I do like the strategy involved in the mini game aspect of it.
Yeah.
But you're right, it does mean that the game stops and you have to shift gears
Right.
and
You have to do
focus
this
on
little
that.
battle back and
Yeah.
forth, and then you continue on with the regular game.
Yes. Yeah.
Regular program.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about rules.
Sure.
So the rule book, NATO. What
Yeah.
would you say about the rule
Well,
book and the rules themselves?
It certainly helps if you have if you've played Twilight Struggle before. You will certainly be able to pick the game up pretty quickly because of
Yep.
the equivalence in many ways. The rules are not long. It's about 13 pages of rules. The rest of it is just
card
describing the
information.
events and what
Sample
the
of play.
history is and an example of play. So there really isn't a lot to learn. And again, if you're familiar with this game at all, or even 1960, you'll pick it up reasonably quickly. So I would say the rules are good. They're well written, and I think they did a great job with it. It's very clear. I've had to look up rules, but I've never been missing a rule I felt was not there. Where I'm like, I'm not sure how to play this. It's always in there.
And they do have a player aid sequence here as well for a little quick reference guide as well.
Yes.
To sort of help you out with that. So
Yeah.
that is good. And who would you say this game is for?
Again, I think for fans of Twilight Struggle, this is a neat variant, on that. I don't think it's as good as Twilight Struggle overall, but it's close enough. I enjoy it in its own way. It's actually got a very special place in my sort of life in
Yeah.
that sense, because when we were really obsessed with Twilight Struggle, when 1989 came along, it
We
was
were
kind
all
of
over it.
another outlet, to play. And we played a ton of this game.
Yes, we did.
When we first got it, and
Yeah.
it was so much fun.
Yeah.
So I think this game is for people who like that kind of influence placement.
Yeah.
No direct conflict type thing, but it's you're doing they call them support checks, like coups in Twilight Struggle and so forth. The mechanisms are a little bit different, but again similar enough. So for fans of that. Outside of that, I don't think it's for light gamers though.
No.
You need to be sort of medium gamer
heavy.
and medium to heavy.
Yeah.
I would say. It's not necessarily that it's hard to learn, but the interactions of all the cards.
There's a lot of card text.
Yes.
There's a lot of reading in
Lot
this
of
game
reading.
you're going to have to go through.
So it's definitely got that. It takes a bit of an investment of time and energy to learn it, to learn how to play it well.
Yep.
Again, to compare once again with Twilight Struggle, the better you know the decks, the better you're going to play, because you're going to know what's coming or what to expect or how to handle certain cards when they come up. And there is a David Hasselhoff card.
Any game with a David Hasselhoff as the icon. I mean, New Year's Eve party. You gotta love that one.
Absolutely.
So, well, I gotta be honest. I'm a little bit torn with this game because Twilight Struggle is a global affair. Okay, and 1989 pares it down to Eastern Europe. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scoring countries, all in Eastern Europe. It's a much narrower game. Also, the battle deck where you battle back and forth.
The power struggle.
We've already kind of discussed that part too, which I'm kind of on the fence about.
Yeah.
I do like that they twisted the game, like they made it its own interpretation of the game, but it is a stop and let's do this part. So
yeah,
that's my thought on those.
Yeah. But I mean, again, overall, if there were some criticisms though, power struggles aside, any other criticisms of the game that you have?
You know what? I don't have a lot. Because I love Twilight Struggle. Twilight Struggle is one of my favorite all-time games, and this definitely scratches that same itch in a different kind of way, and I really, really appreciate what it's trying to do here.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Now, I do have a little bit of a nitpick with the way the game was produced, and it's more in the potential points of confusion. So, for example, just to go back to this deck here, here I have an intellectual leader. So what space do you think this links to? Well, it links to the writer's space. So
how would you know that?
Like
That's
you have to double check up here and double, there's a few kind of disconnects there. They're just small
when it could have been so easy to put the little typewriter icon right on there. On the card, right?
Yes, the iconography could have been a little bit more clear. Like
crisper.
I appreciate that this guy looks very intellectual, but put a typewriter there.
Right.
Or for a student leader. Put the victory V for victory sign or whatever on there.
Right, the student, the symbol, right?
Yeah, or the
elite. Put the little limo.
So then it's just
the limo
instead
on there,
of having to remember which
to look at your little legend here.
Yeah,
you can
you're able to
instantly
connect them
just
much
look at
more
the map that
instantly.
you're looking at anyway.
Yeah, so they're mostly like tweaks in gameplay. I don't know. I'm still have mixed feelings about the Tiananmen Square track. Or the space race track.
You like it in Twilight.
Well, I feel like the power ramps up like pretty high on some of these. So you pass your first check and you get +1 ops value for all your 1-ups cards.
Yeah.
So I like it in some ways, but it can be pretty devastating if you roll poorly on this and you fall well behind.
Then you're playing catch up.
Yeah, then you're playing catch up, and it's tough to turn that around in this one. There are no cards that like jump you 2 spaces on the space race or automatically advance you. Maybe one card I think that automatically advances you, but I can't remember offhand.
Yeah.
But it's something where you have to keep up with, but it may be harder and harder for you to do so because the advantages you can get on this track are pretty significant sometimes.
Yes, they can really, really ramp.
So I would say overall that I think this game, in my experience, I think it's more swingy. Usually one side is going to get established, and then it's kind of you're playing it out to see. Some games have been really tense, but there's a lot of games where we play it out and basically see the revolutionary player win, or see the Soviet player winning, and it's kind of tough to turn that tide.
I noticed that we've played a number of games, and by about turn 5, the game is decided. Out of 10. So we've played 3 or 4 games in the last week or two, and we have not got to the late war yet.
No.
Right? We haven't even scored because the game has ended on
turn 5 or 6. It's over,
and it has been very swingy one way or the other.
Yeah, because the victory points can be massive on the scoring cards. If you control a country, you can absolutely rack up a lot of points on that.
Yes, especially those higher scoring countries. East Germany for controlled 9.
Yeah.
There was another really powerful one here.
I think Poland's reason. Yeah,
Poland's a big one too. Another 9. Yeah, that's it. So and even Czech is 8 or 6.
Yeah.
So you could get a lot of points pretty quickly if you seem to have had to dominate. So
yes, and the support checks, which are the coups, are actually much less effective in this, but you do get 2 attempts instead of 1. I think that was because they recognized, if you were playing a card for a support check, you would never do it just for 1 roll. It would just not be worth it.
Worth the risk,
Yeah, because there's with all the modifiers and everything, things can get kind of locked down in a way that doesn't happen in quite the same way.
That's right.
In
It's
Twilight
Twilight.
Struggle, but yeah. But overall, though, these are quibbles.
Yes.
We've had some amazing back and forth games. I really love this game, and I really do want to introduce it to people who may not have heard of it before. It is absolutely worth getting. It's absolutely worth playing, and I really hope you do.
If you like Twilight Struggle, you will love this one as well.
Yeah, so thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to get out there.
Get gaming and be legendary.